Hello, and welcome to the 2024 AP Computer Science Exam Solutions. Today we're going to be tackling question 1 from the AP Computer Science exam that involves simulating a bird feeder. So let's dive right into part A. Our task is to write the simulate one-day method. This method simulates a day with birds or possibly a bear visiting the feeder. This method simulates the number of birds or bear at the feeder for one day. It should determine the amount of food taken from the feeder on this day and update the current food variable. This method accounts for normal conditions 95% of the time and abnormal conditions about 5% of the time. Normal conditions mean that on any given day, X number of birds can consume between 10 and 50 grams of food inclusive, which should be randomly generated. For example, we can generate about 11 grams of food, and if 10 birds come to the feeder, then 110 grams of food will be consumed. Abnormal conditions mean that a bear visits our feeder and our food supply at the end of the day is automatically 0. Then finally, we have some examples to help us in checking our solution. In the simulation, since there's a 95% chance that birds visit and a 5% chance that a bear visits, we use a random number between 1 and 100 to determine the visitor type. We also set up our random number generator between 10 and 50 grams of food for the amount of food each bird will consume. Once we generate our random number, if it's 95 or below, it's birds. Otherwise, it's a bear. If we decide that birds have visited, each bird eats between 10 and 50 grams of food, which is also randomly generated using our values defined above. We can multiply this by the number of birds to get the total food consumed, since the birds all eat the same amount. If the total food consumed exceeds the current food, the feeder is emptied, or in this case, set to 0. We have this check here to avoid getting negative values. Otherwise, we subtract the consumed food from the current food and update our current food value. If we decide a bear visits, it eats all the food, setting the current food to 0. Since this function is a void, we do not return anything here. Stay tuned for part B, where we'll simulate the multiple days. Thanks for watching. Welcome back to our AP Computer Science 2024 review. Let's continue with part B of question 1 of our feeder simulation problem. In part B, we need to write the simulate many days method. This method uses simulate one day to simulate up to a given number of days and returns how many days birds or bear found food at the feeder. Here we have our solution. First, we check if there's any food in the feeder. If not, we can return 0 days since there's no need to even try and consume food. Next, we loop through each day up to the specified number of days starting at day 1. For each day, we call simulate one day and immediately check if the food is depleted. If the food is gone, we return the current day number, indicating the last day birds or bear found food. If we complete all days successfully without running out of food, we can return the total number of days simulated. With this method, we can effectively simulate and track the days until the food runs out at the feeder. So that's it for our feeder simulation problem. Thanks for watching and happy coding.